What if I told you that the taxi driver taking you home tonight can see exactly how you're going to die? Meet Destiny, whose supernatural gift becomes his worst nightmare when he realizes some futures shouldn't be revealed. In the bustling streets of Lagos, where the sound of honking horns mingles with the rhythmic beats of Afrobeat music spilling from roadside bars, Destiny navigated his yellow taxi through the never-ending maze of traffic. The neon lights of the city painted dancing shadows across his weathered face as he glanced into his rearview mirror. But what Destiny saw in that mirror was something no ordinary man should ever witness. For 3 years, Destiny had carried a burden that would have driven most men to madness. Every passenger who climbed into his back seat unknowingly revealed their fate through the mystical reflection of his mirror. It wasn't something he had asked for. This curse that came to him during a visit to the village shrine of his ancestors. The old priestess, Blessing, had warned him that some gifts from the spirits come with a price, but he had been desperate for answers about his own future. Now, as he watched the clock strike midnight, Destiny wished he had never sought those answers. The rain began to fall in heavy drops against his windshield, each drop seeming to echo the weight of the secrets he carried. In 3 years of driving through Lagos nights, he had seen everything. Politicians meeting their downfall through corruption scandals, young lovers discovering betrayal, businessmen facing bankruptcy, mothers losing children to preventable diseases. The spirits showed him death, betrayal, loss, and occasionally rare moments of unexpected joy. But tonight felt different. Tonight, the very air seemed to hum with an energy that made his skin crawl and his hands tremble on the steering wheel. His phone buzzed with a ride request. The pickup location was in Victoria Island, one of the wealthier districts where the elite lived behind high walls and security gates. Destiny hesitated for a moment, his finger hovering over the accept button. Something deep in his gut told him to decline this ride, to go home to his small apartment in Surulere and forget about earning money for the night. But bills needed to be paid, and his sister Sophia was depending on him to send money for her university fees. With a heavy sigh, he accepted the ride and began navigating through the rain-soaked streets toward his destination. The pickup address led him to a luxury apartment complex where a woman stood waiting under the dim glow of a street lamp. She was elegantly dressed in traditional Nigerian attire, her jewel head wrap perfectly arranged, and gold jewelry catching the light. But there was something unsettling about the way she stood so perfectly still, as if she were a statue rather than a living person. As she approached his taxi, Destiny felt his heart rate increase. The woman, who appeared to be in her 30s with striking features and an almost ethereal beauty, opened the rear door and slid into his back seat with fluid grace. "Good evening," she said, her voice carrying a melodic quality that seemed to resonate in the confined space of the taxi. "I need to go to the National Theater, please." Destiny nodded, trying to appear normal despite the growing sense of unease that was settling over him like a heavy blanket. He adjusted his rearview mirror as he always did when a new passenger entered his taxi, preparing himself for whatever vision the spirits would reveal. But what he saw in the reflection made his blood turn to ice. The woman's reflection showed not the elegantly dressed passenger sitting behind him, but a figure draped in white burial cloth, her eyes hollow and dark. her skin bearing the ashen pallor of death. Around her neck hung traditional burial beads, and her hands were crossed over her chest in the position of the deceased. The vision was so vivid, so terrifyingly real, that Destiny had to grip the steering wheel to prevent his hands from shaking. This wasn't a vision of how she would die. This was the reflection of someone who was already dead. "Is everything all right, brother?" the woman asked, using the familiar Nigerian term of endearment that should have been comforting, but instead sent chills down his spine. "Yes, madam," Destiny managed to reply, his voice barely steady. "Just checking the route." As he pulled away from the curb, his mind raced. In 3 years of seeing death through his mirror, he had never encountered anything like this. The visions always showed how living people would meet their end, but this woman's reflection suggested she was already beyond the realm of the living. The drive to the National Theater should have taken 30 minutes. But as they moved through the empty streets of Lagos, Destiny noticed something impossible. The clock on his dashboard hadn't moved. It remained frozen at 12:47 a.m., the exact time he had picked up his passenger. "Tell me, Destiny," the woman said, and his heart nearly stopped when she used his name. He had never introduced himself, and his taxi didn't display his name anywhere visible to passengers. "How do you know my name?" he asked, his voice tight with fear. The woman laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, beautiful yet somehow ominous. "I know many things about you, my child. I know about your gift. I know about the burden you carry. Most importantly, I know why you were chosen." Destiny's hands were now visibly shaking as he tried to maintain control of the vehicle. "I don't understand what you're talking about, madam." "Look at me in your mirror again," she commanded, her voice suddenly carrying an authority that seemed to resonate through his very bones. Against every instinct screaming at him not to look, Destiny glanced into the rearview mirror. This time, the woman's reflection showed her as she appeared in life. But her eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and around her seemed to float the translucent figures of other spirits. "My name is Asha," she said, her voice now carrying the weight of centuries. "I am what your people call a spirit guide, sent by your ancestors to prepare you for what is coming." "What is coming?" Destiny whispered, barely able to form the words. "There is a man named Django who has been searching for someone with your abilities. He leads a criminal organization that has discovered the existence of people like you, people who can see beyond the veil between life and death. He wants to use your gift for his own dark purposes." As if summoned by her words, Destiny's phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize, but something compelled him to answer. "Destiny Johnson," a gruff voice said on the other end. "I know what you can do. I know about your little talent with that mirror of yours." Destiny's blood ran cold. "Who is this?" "My name is Django, and I have a proposition for you. You can either work for me willingly, or I can make life very difficult for you and your family. Your sister Sophia is a lovely girl, isn't she? Studies at the University of Lagos, I believe." The threat was clear, and Destiny felt a rage building inside him that he had never experienced before. "If you touch my sister, then you'll do exactly as I say," Django interrupted. "I be in touch with instructions." "And Destiny? Don't even think about going to the police. I have people everywhere." The line went dead, leaving Destiny staring at his phone in horror. When he looked up, he realized that Asha had vanished from his back seat as silently as she had appeared. The clock on his dashboard now read 3:15 a.m., though it felt like only minutes had passed since midnight. Confused and terrified, Destiny drove home through the empty streets, his mind reeling from the night's events. But as he parked outside his apartment building, he found Asha waiting for him, now appearing as solid and real as any living person. "The real test begins now," she said, her expression grave. "Django will try to force you to use your gift to identify his enemies, to see their weaknesses and predict their deaths so he can eliminate them before they become a threat. You must understand that your gift was never meant for such darkness." "Then why do I have it?" Destiny demanded, his frustration and fear boiling over. "Why was I cursed with this burden?" Asha's expression softened with compassion. "Because your ancestors saw that you would be needed in these times. The gift you carry is not a curse, but a sacred responsibility. You are meant to help souls find peace, to warn the innocent of danger, and to serve as a bridge between the world of the living and the realm of the spirits." "But how can I fight someone like Django?" "I'm just a taxi driver." "You are much more than that," Asha replied, "but you will need allies. There is a police officer named Judah who has been investigating Django's organization. He is honest and can be trusted. There is also your friend Coffee, who has always believed in the old ways and the power of the spirits." Over the following days, Destiny tried to return to his normal routine, but Django's threat hung over him like a dark cloud. He couldn't concentrate on driving, and every passenger who entered his taxi seemed to carry an aura of potential danger. The visions in his mirror became more intense and frequent, showing him scenes of violence and death that made him question his sanity. It was on a Thursday evening, as he picked up a fare near the Lagos Island Business District, that his world truly began to unravel. The passenger was a middle-aged businessman in an expensive suit, talking loudly on his phone about a real estate deal. But when Destiny looked in his mirror, he saw the man's future death in vivid detail. The businessman would be murdered in his office within the next 48 hours, shot by someone he trusted. The vision was so clear that Destiny could see the face of the killer, could hear the last words that would be spoken. For 3 years, Destiny had maintained his silence about the visions. But watching this man laugh and joke on his phone, completely unaware of his impending doom, broke something inside him. "Sir," Destiny said, catching the man's attention through the rearview mirror, "I need to tell you something important. Your life is in danger." The businessman laughed, assuming it was some kind of joke. "What are you talking about, driver?" "Your business partner, the one with the scar on his left cheek, is planning to kill you tomorrow night in your office. He's going to use your own gun, the one you keep in your desk drawer." The man's laughter died immediately, his face going pale. "How could you possibly know about that gun?" "Who are you?" Before Destiny could respond, his phone rang. It was Django. "I told you not to interfere with fate." Django's voice was cold with fury. "That businessman is supposed to die tomorrow. His death will clear the way for one of my deals. If you've warned him, you've just made a very serious mistake." "I couldn't just let an innocent man die," Destiny protested. "Innocent?" Django laughed harshly. That man has stolen millions from pension funds, leaving hundreds of elderly people in poverty. His death would have been justice. But now, because of your interference, I'll have to find another way to handle the situation. And your sister will pay the price for your disobedience." The line went dead, and Destiny felt his world crashing down around him. He had thought he was saving an innocent life, but instead he had protected a criminal and put his sister in danger. That night, Destiny sought out Asha, driving to the old shrine where his gift had first manifested. She appeared to him among the ancient carved figures of his ancestors, her form shimmering with spiritual energy. "I made a mistake," he confessed, tears streaming down his face. "I thought I was doing the right thing, but I've made everything worse." "The path of righteousness is never simple," Asha replied, with infinite patience. "But you cannot let fear or doubt cloud your judgment. The spirits chose you because you have the strength to bear this burden and the wisdom to use it correctly. But how can I know what's right? How can I tell the difference between justice and murder? That is why you must learn to see not just death, but the full story of a person's life. Your gift is evolving, Destiny. Soon you will be able to see not just how someone dies, but why they deserve their fate, or why they deserve salvation." As if responding to her words, Destiny felt a strange sensation, like electricity flowing through his veins. When he looked at Asha in the shrine's reflecting pool, he saw not just her spiritual form, but flashes of her entire existence, her past lives, her purpose, her connection to his family line. "I can see," he whispered in amazement. "Yes," Asha smiled. "Now you are beginning to understand the true nature of your gift." The next morning, Destiny received a call from his friend Coffee, a mechanic who had always been fascinated by traditional African spirituality and had often encouraged Destiny to embrace his heritage rather than fear it. "My brother," Coffee said, his voice urgent, "there are some men asking questions about you in the neighborhood. Dangerous-looking men with expensive cars. I think you should come to my shop so we can talk." When Destiny arrived at Coffee's auto repair shop in Mushin, he found his friend waiting with a serious expression and a police officer he didn't recognize. "This is Inspector Judah," Coffee said. "He's been investigating some very dangerous people, and he believes you might be in trouble." Inspector Judah was a tall, imposing man with intelligent eyes and the bearing of someone who had seen too much of the world's darkness. "Mr. Destiny," he said, extending his hand, "I've been tracking a criminal organization led by a man named Django. My sources tell me he's been trying to recruit people with unusual abilities." Destiny looked between his friend and the police officer, unsure how much he should reveal. But when he looked at Inspector Judah through the reflection in Coffee's shop window, he saw something that made his decision clear. This man's future showed him risking his own life to protect innocent people, dying in the line of duty, but saving dozens of lives in the process. He was truly one of the good ones. "He wants me to use my gift to help him eliminate his enemies," Destiny admitted. "He's threatened my sister if I don't cooperate." Inspector Judah nodded grimly. "We've been trying to gather evidence against Django for years, but he's always one step ahead. If you're willing to help us, we might finally be able to bring him down." "But if I help you and he finds out, we'll protect your sister," Inspector Judah promised. "I have a team of officers I trust completely. We can move her to a safe location while we work on this case." That evening, as Destiny prepared for what might be his final night of normal taxi driving, Asha appeared to him one more time. "Tomorrow night, Django will ask you to use your gift to identify a threat to his organization," she said. "What he doesn't know is that the real threat is already sitting at his own table. One of his most trusted lieutenants is planning to betray him to a rival gang." "Should I tell him?" Destiny asked. "That choice is yours to make," Asha replied. "But remember that sometimes justice comes from the most unexpected sources. The spirits work in mysterious ways, and what appears to be betrayal might actually be divine retribution." The next night, Destiny received the call he had been dreading. Django's men picked him up and brought him to a luxurious mansion in Ikoyi, where Nigeria's wealthy elite lived, behind high walls and armed security. The mansion was filled with expensive furniture and art, but there was an underlying atmosphere of violence and menace that no amount of luxury could disguise. Django sat in a massive leather chair, like a king holding court, surrounded by armed men whose eyes held the cold emptiness of professional killers. Django himself was a powerfully built man in his 50s, with tribal scars on his cheeks that spoke of his traditional upbringing, though he had clearly embraced the modern world of crime and corruption. When he smiled, gold teeth glinted in the light, and his eyes held an intelligence that made him even more dangerous than his reputation suggested. "Welcome, Destiny," Django said, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to absolute obedience. "I trust you've had time to consider my offer?" "I don't have much choice," Destiny replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "Good. I have a simple task for you. Look at each of my associates here and tell me which one poses a threat to my organization." Destiny looked around the room at the gathered men, using his enhanced vision to see beyond their physical appearances into their true natures and futures. Most of them showed loyalty to Django, their futures intertwined with his criminal empire. But one man sitting quietly in the corner showed something different. This man's future revealed him making a phone call to a rival gang leader, arranging for an attack on Django's main warehouse. In the vision, Destiny could see the man's motivation. Django had killed his younger brother over a minor dispute, and this was his revenge. "Well?" Django demanded impatiently. Destiny hesitated, remembering Asha's words about divine justice. If he revealed the traitor, he would be saving Django's life and allowing more innocent people to suffer under his rule. But if he remained silent, he would be allowing betrayal and violence to unfold. Then he remembered something else Asha had told him. Sometimes the spirits work through imperfect instruments to achieve perfect justice. "I don't see any immediate threats in this room," Destiny said finally. Django's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "Are you certain?" "Look again, more carefully this time." Destiny pretended to concentrate, looking at each man again. "I see loyalty," he lied. "These men would die for you." Satisfied with this answer, Django dismissed him with instructions to be available for future consultations. As Destiny was driven home, he felt the weight of his decision settling over him. He had chosen to allow justice to take its course, even if that justice would come through betrayal and violence. 3 days later, the newspapers reported a massive gang war that had erupted in Lagos. Django's warehouse had been attacked by a rival organization, leading to a series of retaliatory strikes that left dozens dead and his criminal empire in ruins. In the chaos, several of his closest associates had been arrested by police, and Inspector Judah's team had gathered enough evidence to issue warrants for the surviving members of the organization. Django himself had disappeared, presumably fled the country, but his power in Lagos was broken forever. Destiny met with Inspector Judah and coffee at a small bar in Surulere, where they celebrated the successful end of the investigation. His sister Sophia had been safely returned to university, unaware of how close she had come to danger. "How did you know?" Inspector Judah asked. "How did you know that Django's organization would implode?" Destiny smiled mysteriously. "Sometimes justice finds its own way." As he drove home that night, Asha appeared one final time in his rearview mirror. "You have learned the most important lesson," she said with pride. "True justice sometimes requires difficult choices, but it always serves the greater good. Your ancestors are proud of you." "What happens now?" Destiny asked. "Do I keep the gift?" "The gift is yours forever," Asha replied. "But now you understand its true purpose. You are not meant to prevent every death or intervene in every tragedy. You are meant to serve as a guardian, protecting the innocent and ensuring that justice prevails, even when it comes in unexpected forms. And if someone else like Django tries to use me," Asha's smile was filled with ancient wisdom, "then you will be ready for them. You have allies now, and more importantly, you have learned to trust in the wisdom of your ancestors and the justice of the spirits." As Asha's form began to fade, she offered one final piece of advice. "Remember, Destiny, that every soul you encounter in your taxi carries their own story, their own struggles, and their own destiny. Treat each one with compassion, for you never know when you might be carrying an angel unaware." Over the following months, Destiny continued driving his taxi through the streets of Lagos, but with a new understanding of his role in the cosmic order. He used his gifts sparingly and wisely, sometimes warning people of dangers that could be avoided, sometimes offering comfort to those facing inevitable tragedy, and sometimes simply bearing witness to the stories that unfolded in his back seat. He learned to see not just death, but life in all its complexity. He saw the businessman who appeared successful but was struggling with depression find hope through an unexpected encounter. He saw the young woman who seemed destined for poverty discover a talent that would lift her family out of hardship. He saw the elderly man who appeared to be dying alone reconnect with estranged family members who still loved him. The taxi became more than just a vehicle for transportation. It became a sacred space where the boundary between the physical and spiritual worlds grew thin, where people found exactly what they needed, even if they didn't know they were looking for it. 1 year after his encounter with Django, Destiny picked up a passenger who would test everything he had learned. The man was well-dressed and polite. But when Destiny looked in his mirror, he saw a future filled with unimaginable horror. This man would become responsible for the deaths of hundreds of innocent people in a terrorist attack planned for the following week. But unlike his encounter with Django's organization, this was not a case where justice would find its own way. This was pure evil that needed to be stopped before it could unfold. Without hesitation, Destiny contacted Inspector Judah, who had since been promoted and now led an anti-terrorism unit. The investigation that followed prevented one of the most devastating attacks in Nigeria's history, saving countless lives and proving that destiny's gift, when used with wisdom and courage, could serve as a powerful force for good in a world often dominated by darkness. As he continued his work, driving through the endless nights of Lagos, with the spirits of his ancestors watching over him, Destiny finally understood that his burden was also his blessing. He was a guardian standing at the crossroads between life and death, between justice and injustice, between hope and despair. And in a city of over 20 million souls, each carrying their own dreams and fears, their own stories of triumph and tragedy, there was always someone who needed a guardian, someone who needed to encounter exactly the right person at exactly the right moment. In his taxi, with his mystical mirror reflecting not just the road behind, but the infinite possibilities ahead, Destiny Johnson continued his sacred duty, one passenger at a time, one story at a time, one soul at a time. The spirits had chosen well.